I don't want to go see this episode. Time to man up. It's Game of Thrones time. I'll see you guys after I'm done with episode 3. Be right back.
2 hours later.
I need a minute. I mean, where do I even start? I guess we'll just at the beginning, I guess. You see the mass of the army of the living stationed outside of Winterfell. They're just standing there waiting for the army of the dead. They're looking out over the field. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. And I mean, just the tension is just building up. It's like an axe waiting to drop. And you're just like, oh my God, when is it coming? Almost on cue, out of the darkness, comes the Red Lady. And I'm just sitting there like, where the fuck have you been this entire time? She pulls a Beric Dondarrion. She goes over to the Dothraki and she basically lights up all their swords on fire, which I was like, that's welcomed. Yes, thank you. Jon and Dany are waiting way off to the side with their dragons to wait for the Night King to come in for Bran. Jorah leads the charge with the Dothraki out into the darkness. Their swords are lighting up the way. You see Ghost running alongside Jorah and you're just like, yeah! And then out of the darkness, just the massive horde of the undead just for that split second, Jorah's just like, oh my God. And jumps to what the army sees that's left behind at Winterfell. They just see the Dothraki's fire swords waving around, and then ever so slowly, each of them start going out until there's just nothing left and it's just dead quiet. And you just know one of the soldiers there is just like, oh, well, we're right fucked, aren't we? Eventually some survivors come out of the dark, some Dothraki, Jorah Mormont. No Ghost though. So I gotta be honest, if Ghost just died off screen without ever seeing him do anything throughout this entire show, I'm gonna be so pissed off. I like to think that maybe he's thought, yeah, I'm just gonna get the fuck out of here, and just trolled right out of here like he did at Battle of the Bastards. He was just like, I wasn't here for Battle of the Bastards, I'm not gonna be here for this shit. Dany gets impatient because she basically just watches her entire cavalry just get massacred. And she's like, I'm pretty much just going to bring in my dragon at this point. This is bullshit. The undead army just comes out of the darkness and hits the good guy army like a fucking freight train. I mean, they completely overtake the first few ranks of the Stark and Targaryen forces because they come at them like an actual wave where they're like 4, 5, 6 bodies high, just coming right over the shields of the good guys. And everyone out there, Brienne, Sam, Ed, Jaime, all the rest, everyone's just like, oh no. And you're just watching the army of the living just get bulldozed by the army of the dead, and there's just no better word for it. Bulldozed. Which only makes the whole thing worse when all these undead are just swarming all of these characters that you love. Tormund gets slashed on the leg, and I'm just going, no, he's gonna die. It's not the favorite unicorn. Somehow he manages to escape though. He gets back into Winterfell. All these characters get a hair's width away from death, but every single time when they're about to be killed, someone comes in, saves them last second. Ed dies, and Sam's just like, I have no idea why I came out here in the first place. This seems like a very bad place for me to be just in general. And then just trolls back to Winterfell. Then you had Grey Worm basically covering the retreat of the other northern troops. And at a point he realized the Unsullied are just not going to be able to hold back this undead horde, which was kind of disappointing because all I've ever heard about in this show on multiple occasions is just how well trained the Unsullied army is and that they're some of the finest warriors in the land. But throughout the series, they just haven't really been shown as such. So he gives the order to have Dany and Jon signaled to come and set the trenches on fire that they built to hold off the army of the dead, but they're too busy flying off to try to kill the Night King's lieutenants. But during that time, a huge snowstorm comes in and blocks off their view, so they can't see the signal that Davos is waving them down to try to get them to come back to Winterfell to light up the trenches, because now they're lost in a blizzard. Then in comes the Red Lady with some Unsullied guards, the Hound, and a few other characters blocking off the undead while she uses her fire magic again. And at first she's watching all all of this carnage happening in front of her, she keeps reciting the same line over and over again, the same incantation. She just sees the undead getting closer and closer, and at a moment you see it in her face like, this might not work. I might have just killed myself right now. But finally, right as the undead get almost face to face with her, the trenches all go up all at once, and it blocks off the undead. They all halt on the other side. The good guys pull back into Winterfell. They shut the gate, they lock the doors, they get on the wall, and everything goes still for a moment. During this time, the Night King's been hiding in the snowstorm that he's created, and he just looks down and he holds out his hands. All the undead just start piling onto the fire and start smothering it. And after the fire's extinguished, they all just at once advance forward and they just start piling up each other on the wall, just start climbing up the wall. And a very reminiscent scene of World War Z, because they just start climbing all over each other and piling up on top of one another, and they just get up to the very walls of Winterfell and climbing up on top and just start overwhelming the garrison that's stationed up there. Which again, that's another thing that's just annoyed me, because again, throughout the show, it's been said multiple times that a garrison of like 500 men stationed in Winterfell could hold off an army of 10,000. And there's easily a few thousand soldiers in Winterfell at this point. So it should be fairly easy to believe that the good guys should be mopping the floor with the undead. But no, they get overwhelmed pretty quickly. The undead get over the walls. A giant breaks through the gate, smashes Lyanna Mormont, who is guarding it. She's watching her men getting slaughtered, and she's basically like, do or die, bitch! Starts limping over to attack the undead giant. She ends up getting picked up by the giant and starts getting crushed in his hands, and then he brings her up to his face to try to like eat her head, I think. She just pulls out an obsidian dagger and sticks him in the eye with it, kills him. They both drop. She dies though, unfortunately. Before I go any further, for the actress who plays Lyanna Mormont, my god, lady, you are fantastic. But I just have to tell you, during my childhood, no one really expected much of child actors. They were always really D- in terms of acting at their best of times. And you come from a completely new generation where there are so many kid actors that just slay their roles, and you did. And you just earned your badassery stripe. You are an amazing actor, and I really hope you stick to it. Thank you so much. We see the undead start overwhelming Winterfell, and let me just say, at this point, we should just take the northern soldiers and put them up there next to the red shirts, stormtroopers, generic orcs, and Gondorian soldiers as probably some of the most worthless troops in fictional history. We see Arya sneaking around some of the keep, trying to avoid some of the undead that are just sort of shambling around through the halls, and eventually she ends up running into the Hound and Beric Dondarrion, who ends up getting shanked several times when he pulls Arya to safety while the Hound carries her off when she keeps trying to go back to keep helping him, but the Hound's just tugging her along like, come on, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And they all end up making it past this door and barricading it shut. Sir Beric lays up against the wall and Arya sits down with him, and he just basically dies without saying a word, and it's revealed that he's died all these times just to save Arya for this one moment, and we learn what that moment is in about 20 minutes. Meanwhile, Jon and Dany are still floundering around in the Night King's storm that he's created, and they basically end up going, okay, fuck this, and they fly up through the top of the storm so they can escape. The Night King ends up coming out and attacking the both of them and ambushing them. Viserion and Rhaegal duke it out, Rhaegal getting pretty bashed up, but Drogon comes in last minute, pounces on top of him, rips off a chunk of Viserion's jaw. Rhaegal crash lands and throws Jon off. Dany and Drogo end up chasing off Viserion and knocking the Night King off of Viserion, who gives the most don't give a shit look while he's plummeting probably a few hundred feet. Just don't give a fuck. Daenerys then flies down with Drogon to the Night King, who just stands up like nothing happened, and then she just Dracarys the fuck out of him, and after which the fire begins to dissipate, and we see that Dragonfire has no effect on the Night King, who then pulls a very Luke Skywalker moment from The Last Jedi, who's all just like, bitch, please. And Daenerys is just like, oh. She then nopes the fuck out of there and narrowly missing one of the Night King's javelin shots. Jon tries to catch up to the Night King so he can fight him one-on-one, but then the Night King just turns around, sees him, and then lifts up his arms and then raises all the dead Stark and Unsullied forces, and the motherfucker smirks. He was proud of what he did. He knew he was being an evil dick, and then he turns and basically like, yeah, I'm gonna leave my guys to do the dirty work here. Jon's left behind to basically fend off the hundreds of undead that are now just shambling towards him. Dany ends up coming in last minute to save him with her dragon, clears a path for him to go and chase after the Night King. He runs off to go get him. All of a sudden, all the undead start turning their attention to Dany and her dragon, and they just start climbing all over Drogo, who's just like, ah! He ends up shaking Dany off, and frankly, the whites, they just look like ants just all over Drogon's body, and he's just trying to shake them off. He flies off, leaving Dany behind, and the ones that fall off his body end up getting up, looking at Dany, and I'm just like, Well, Dany's fucked now. They all start charging towards Dany, and out of nowhere, Jorah Mormont, again, king of the friend zone, comes in and just fights tooth and nail to protect Dany. Dany picks up her own dragon glass sword, and I'm just like, oh, you're adorable. But she does watch Jorah's back at a couple moments, stabbing a couple of whites here and there, but ultimately he gets stabbed a few times. That'll end well, I'm sure. But Jorah's having none of it, and he's just killing whites left and right like it's his job. Kind of is at this point. Then we go to the crypts of Winterfell, where it was told, oh, so many times that it is the safest place in Winterfell. Did no one think that it was a good idea to put all the people into a room filled with dead people when they're fighting an enemy that constantly raises dead people to fight for him? All the dead Starks that were buried in the crypts start coming to life, and then they just start swarming the survivors that are holed up in there and killing people left and right. Sansa and Tyrion are hiding behind a statue. They look at each other like, yeah, we're basically going to die. Tyrion kisses Sansa's hand and they both accept their fate. Then we jump back to Jon, who's just running through Winterfell. It's just this montage where he's just looking over and seeing all of these main characters that we love, his friends. Their backs are literally to the wall, where they're just holding off these hordes of undead that are just snapping at him at an arm's length away. And I'm just like, are these people really not getting gut stabbed at this time? But I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. They're just like, nah, God, get the fuck away from me! And at one point, Jon actually sees Sam is like on the ground fighting with a White Walker that's on top of him trying to kill him, and he leaves him behind because in Jon's mind, it's more important to go and kill the Night King than to save his best friend. Meanwhile, you have Theon and the Ironborn holding the line against the undead hordes that are swarming into the Garden of Winterfell to try to kill Bran, and they're just killing whites left and right. Theon just dropping them with his bow, and the guy's just fighting tooth and nail, and he is the last one standing out of all of them protecting Bran. And eventually all the undead just stop and they have him completely encircled. They open up a path for the Night King. The Night King's there with all of his lieutenants. He's walking and he's just staring at the two of them. And Theon just sort of looks back at Bran, and Bran tells him, you're a good man, Theon. And Theon just accepts his fate and he charges towards the Night King with an obsidian tipped spear, and he's just running, roaring towards him, and the Night King just judo grabs his spear, chops it, and impales him with it, killing Theon. He goes down, and then the Night King makes his march towards Bran. He stands in front of Bran. All of this is happening in slow motion, by the way. At first you were having a pacing problem where you were making things move too fast. Now you're slowing down too much. Come on, get to the point. During this time, Jon's just fighting through Winterfell trying to get to Bran because he knows the Night King is going for Bran, and he just can't get there in time. He keeps running into obstacle after obstacle. Viserion comes back in and just is blocking his path. He can't get to Bran no matter what he does. The Night King is standing over Bran finally, and they're just staring at each other. Then you see this quick scene where this gust of wind passes, makes one of the Night King's lieutenant's hair kind of blow in the wind, and you see him notice this, and out of the darkness, Arya, yeah, coming in with a dagger, and then instantaneously the Night King just turns around, grabs her in midair and holds her, and for a second I was like, oh, he's gonna snap her neck, and she's just like, oh shit, the risk was calculated, but man am I bad at math, suck. She drops her Valyrian steel dagger into her free hand, stabs him in the gut, the Night King explodes, all the lieutenants explode, all the Night King's undead army just drop dead. Viserion drops dead when he's about to set Jon on fire, who's just like, yeah, do it! All these main characters who were just on the brink of being stabbed to death and overwhelmed and killed by the Night King's army are saved in this last moment. And that's just what it is. It's just a big moment. And that's it. The Night King's defeated. Suspiciously with very few main character deaths. Not that I'm complaining. I'm not complaining at all. Jorah dies though from his wounds while he's being held in the arms of Daenerys. But oh, don't worry. The Red Lady's here, so she could probably maybe give her life to bring him back to life because she did say she was going to die at dawn. Nope, she just kind of walks out at dawn, takes off her necklace, and then just sort of deteriorates and disintegrates and then dies. Awesome. So that's the end of House Mormont. Fuck! And I know there's probably going to be a lot of people theorizing that the Night King might not really be dead, and I really can't see that happening in the last few episodes of the show where he could come back and still be a thorn in everyone's side, but I really don't know if that's the case, because what the Red Lady says to Arya is that when she kills these certain people with green eyes, brown eyes, and blue eyes, she will close those eyes forever. I actually kind of think that the Night King might be really dead on this one. So all that talk about Azor Ahai just might be for nothing. I'm going to take it, because with all the theories that were going around about what people thought was going to happen, where Jon was going to end up having to kill Daenerys or something along those lines, I was kind of having to come to terms with the fact that this one good guy was probably going to have to kill this other character that I actually really like. If this is a path that's going to be taken to avoid that kind of conclusion, I'll take it. I mean, the Night King was just sort of the biggest problem of Westeros, and if he's really dead, I just really don't know how there's going to be any sort of real conflict to be happening in the preceding war against Cersei, because by what the trailer shows for next week's episode, they still have Drogon and Rhaegal, two fully grown dragons, and some kind of army still left over for the good guys, and all Cersei has is her 20,000 mercenaries and whatever's left of the Lannisters. I just don't see how that's going to amount up to being any kind of challenge against two fully grown dragons. I mean, how well did that work out for the Lannisters when they went up just against Drogon? Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, this was a very intense episode. I am nothing but surprised that so many of these main characters were going to die. There were so many characters I thought were just for sure going to eat it, and only one of them out of all of them really died. I just don't know how this show can end in the bittersweet ending that George R.R. Martin promised us without it just kind of amounting to just some sort of bullshittery going on, where just Cersei somehow manages to kill a lot of these awesome characters in her last-ditch effort to be evil. So I'm making myself a little nervous for this next episode, so I'm going to try to relax myself and just wait and see what happens, because you never know. You don't know what's going to happen until the credits finally roll, so I'm going to hold off on any huge amount of speculations until then. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you like this video, I would appreciate if you leave me a like. If you want to see more, maybe consider subscribing, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you next time.